Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. No.
Sorry. False start.
Literally, as I was doing the intro, he just jumped up and ran over to his coat. He's like, sorry.
Well, you know what? I was at 65%, and I was like, you know what? Now's a capital time to be charging my phone.
65 is pretty high, though.
65 is not nearly high enough.
Oh. When do you start getting nervous? 70?
86, man.
All right. Keep all that gold.
Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. I am here with my friend and trusted producer who just started charging his phone, Max Kerman. Max, what's going on?
I'm feeling good because the charge is happening, you know?
While we record, you're actually getting something done.
Exactly. I'm a multitasker. People know that about me.
Multitasking Max.
That's me.
That's what we call you.
Yeah.
I've never said that once in my life.
But I like it.
Going forward, that's the name. We're also here with our pop culture aficionado, Shane Christian Cunningham. Shane, what's going on?
Yo.
Guys, it's an exciting time. I want to be not the first, but the first on this podcast to say congratulations to both you. You're both JUNO nominees. Max, you're a JUNO winner several times over.
Sure.
But for our pop culture aficionado, first time
Yeah.
JUNO nominee Shane Cunningham. What's up?
Oh, I thought that was going to be an applause. It sounded like it,
yeah.
but
No, there's no one here to
oh,
clap.
I thought you guys were going to kind of clap.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's pretty, pretty
Speech,
surreal.
speech.
Max, thanks for writing that song, man.
Hey.
That's
You
the
got it.
speech.
But this is great, though, because this wasn't our year to be in the JUNO runnings. It was last year because our record came
Out of the album
in
cycle,
2016.
yeah.
But then we had this unicorn song that has served us in so many different ways that came out in March of 2017. And my favorite thing, I've said this before on the pod, is just doing stuff with friends. And I was thinking about, I was telling this to Lauren actually the other day. I was like, I just feel like I'm so lucky because I get to do this pod with my friends. I'm in a band with my friends. It's like I get so many perks through friends. Like the Nut hooks us up with stuff. And our management, like manager Ash and Chris are the best. And our book agents. I just feel so lucky to. Oh, I really only have to do stuff with people I really, really like. and then she was just like, Max, I was in the middle of this big thing, and then she was like, Max, can you stop it, please? It's very obnoxious because most people don't have those kinds of jobs, and I probably won't have that kind of job. I'm in school right now, so can you stop it? And I was like, fair enough.
Was that like you kind of prepared a speech?
That was the JUNO speech.
Yeah. Was that it?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was just
I
me
thought you were
talking.
practicing for a second.
No.
Okay.
But maybe that
was
should
good,
be
though.
if we win.
That could be
Yeah,
a good
that's
JUNO
pretty good.
speech. Well, I was feeling very warm
Mhm.
listening
That
to
got
that.
me kind of emotional.
Yeah, that was nice, man.
Anyway, so then when we found out, actually Ash somehow found out the results 20 minutes before they were announced. So she texted him to me, and then I texted you, and then we had a group thread going. But it was a bit of a surprise for you, right? You didn't know what we were talking
The
about.
second I saw that Mark Myers was on a thing, and it said, "Okay, guys," I'm like, "Fuck, they're gonna ask us to do another video." And I was like, "Oh no, hit me with it." And then because you had been recording more songs recently, so I thought for sure. And then when you said that it won, I was totally shocked.
Yeah.
And I had just booked a trip for that exact same day, so I was like, "Shit!" Now I gotta see if I can cancel the trip
Oh,
So you
that's
can go to the JUNOs.
so I can go to the Junos.
Yeah, man.
a little party in Vancouver.
So we will talk a little bit more about the JUNOs in the dessert chain, but I just want to say congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Hey, I always forget to do this, and then at the end of the episode, I remember. But if you like this podcast, subscribe to it. Make sure you hit subscribe and tell your friends about it and leave a comment in the ratings. So this is my homework assignment for everybody listening. Leave a comment in the ratings for iTunes right now. Tell us what you like about the show. If you have any suggestions, we'd love to hear them. If you have any comments or criticisms, we'll take those too. So, but 5 stars for sure.
Please 5 or
Please 5
don't bother.
stars. Yeah.
Today on the show we got a big one. We actually have Emmy Award winner Lena Waithe, who has obviously been a part of Master of None, which is what she won the Emmy for. But right now she created and is executive producing a show called The Chi. And we talked to her a bit more in the show. So she's a great person to talk to. We'll get to her in a bit. Before we do that, like we do off the top always, what's been going on?
Well, Cam Ballantine.
Yeah.
Update on him. He just competed. Well, he made it right away. He won it. He beat out 6 people to go to the grand finale in Poland. So he made it through the first round. And then in the grand finale, which Steve Coons was actually watching.
So for our listeners, if you hadn't heard Shane's Dessert from 2 episodes ago, I believe, he brought in his old pal, Cam Ballantine, DJ Cam B.
It's a great dessert.
Great dessert to rehash some falling out from their early childhood when they were the Treehouse guys. It came up that nemesis Steve Coons was the guy that came between them. And the reason we had Cam on is because, like Shane said, he placed first in Canada and went to Poland to spin his way to a victory. And this is the update.
So first round, he won that, made it to the grand finale, and then they have it on Facebook Live. So you can see people who actually know a lot about DJing will comment, and you'll see who's joining, who you know. And then all of a sudden I see Steve Coons is watching. And I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, I wonder if he had heard the pod.
Ah.
And then I couldn't resist. I was like, oh, Steve, had you heard the pod? And he hadn't.
Oh.
So he was just going to watch Cam anyway. Maybe he didn't know there was any animosity between the two.
And when he said, what pod, did you go, never mind?
No, I did get a little worried. And then he said something like, I hope he said all good things, I hope. And I was like, haha, no, maybe you just check it out for yourself. Hoping he wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's episode 89. It's just at the end part. And then 10 minutes later, he messaged me back. And he said, oh, you made the wrong choice. You should have stayed with Cam. I'm just whatever he does now. And he's like, and Cam's this like world-renowned DJ. And I was like, yeah, you're right.
Poor Steve
That's how it
Coons.
ended.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cam ended up in third place, which is total bullshit. Because I watched, like, I don't know.
Russian judge. It's like
I don't know
Russian-
anything
It's
about
all very
DJing,
fishy.
but I could tell that Cam was like far and above the best DJ there. Like he was just doing a lot, whereas one girl literally played Wonderwall and just sat back and did nothing.
That's my kind of DJ.
So I'm like, the crowd must be going nuts. All the comments, lambasting her, all angry faces. Like, you know, on Facebook Live, you can see like all the thumbs up, like moving around like musical notes.
Uh-huh.
All angry faces. All the other people had way more angry faces than Cam. So Cam was robbed, and I'm never drinking a Red Bull again.
Unless they'd like to sponsor the
Yeah,
pod,
we're open
we
for
are
that.
always open. We will.
Yeah, obviously.
Also, as far as things that happen in the podcast universe or the Mike on Much universe, I woke up this morning and I started looking at my Insta story, and of course, the first thing that pops up is the Mike on Much feed, and I'm like, oh, a story. I wonder if Shane posted something late at night, maybe Max, and it's a still of Kai from Ottawa, one of our fans,
Yeah.
and Dan Hamilton hanging out at a bar.
Yeah, so I'll explain this to you because I was the one who took the photo. If you can imagine.
Well, I do have I have the power of deduction, unless Dan Hamilton has the login now, or Kai and the boys from Ottawa.
So the last like week's been kind of funny for me because, you know, I live in Hamilton, but Lauren, my Hamilton girlfriend, is now at U of T.
I'm more interested in your Toronto girlfriend or your Calgary girlfriend.
My Hamilton gal.
Yeah, your Halifax girlfriend.
Yeah,
Go on.
I get it. She
Lauren's your only girlfriend, though.
She's
right?
my only
Just
girlfriend.
to make
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Now Shane feels like he's been left out of
I
some
was like, I
information.
don't know.
So she lives in Toronto because she's at U of T and she has a roommate. And I would have moved in with her to her place in Toronto, but then I was like, we're going to be on tour a bunch. And I don't know if it makes sense to be like, and Toronto rent's really expensive. I own a house in Hamilton. It just didn't really seem to make that much sense at the time back in September when she was moving to Toronto. So that was that. But now come January, the band has been off the road. We've been recording in Toronto. There's been a lot of kind of biz to be done in Toronto. There's podcast stuff, yada, yada, yada. So I'm in Toronto all the time, and I've been staying at her place all the time. A couple weeks ago, I started to feel a little bad that maybe I was, you know, it's kind of a small apartment. I was like, wake up every morning, and her roommate would be like, you know, trying to make some coffee. And I'm sitting there at the kitchen table, like reading the newspaper and just like never leaving kind of thing.
A little like third wheel action.
Yeah, exactly. So, I talked,
Also, not paying rent.
and, also not paying rent. I did add an Apple TV though to the
Hey,
apartment.
that's something.
I was like, guys, look what I got. So, I decided that the proper thing to do is not be there 7 nights a week. You know, pick my spots, right? So I packed my bindle and
Like the littlest hobo.
yeah, and I was on my merry way, and I started calling friends. So I said, I could just go back to Hamilton, but then I'd be like, I got some things I got to do in Toronto the next morning. Maybe I can, crash at Dan Hamilton's Airbnb because Dan is making the move from Toronto to Hamilton, and he's just been living in Airbnb.
Reverse, Hamilton to Toronto. He's moving to Toronto. Yeah.
to Toronto.
Ironically,
Dan
for a guy
Hamilton
with the
from
last name Hamilton. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been kind of crashing at Dan's a bunch lately, and it's been really fun. So last night we were just hanging out, just like a couple of roommates, even though I'm, again, not paying rent. And we went
He's going to want an Apple TV now,
Of course, yeah, that's the deal. And so we went out to this bar on King Street, Belfast Love. Cool place. It's always happening. And we're just having a beer, just chatting. And then this hunky dude comes on over, and he looks a little familiar. And he says, "Hey, it's Kai from the podcast." And then immediately I recognized him. And here's the thing. Dan wasn't at the live show because he was away on vacation.
That's right.
So I said, "Oh, this is Dan Hamilton." And he looked at Dan like he was a celebrity because he knew so much about Dan Hamilton.
I was building Dan up so much at the live show because Kai was going on and on about how he loves the Champagne Boy lifestyle. I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna be so bored tonight. So he's just looking at me like I'm supposed to like party. And I was like, oh, Dan's the best Champagne Boy. If he was here, man, it would be a party. He's like the leader of the Champagne Boys. So I kind of created like this huge legend of Dan.
So then the first thing Kai says to Dan is, "Are we in party mode tonight?" So it was awesome. I made a conscious effort not to. I was like, I pulled the plug early. Now Kai was in town only for one night because he works at a bar in Ottawa, and they drove down for industry night just to party on a Sunday night in Toronto.
Hey,
they drove like through the snow.
That's dedication.
That is dedication to partying.
Industry night? What is that?
Industry night's like when bartenders have like their time to party.
People
'Cause-
people work at bars. All the peak hours are like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So for them to drink, it's like industry nights are like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. You know the old
Monday, Tuesday is the weekend.
That's right. I was literally just going to bring up that line.
Exactly. So, so of course, though, being the good, gracious host that he is, Dan bought shots for everybody immediately. Then Kai bought like shots with whipped cream in them, and he was so excited. He was like, "You guys got to come to this other bar. We got like 8 bottle service. Like we're
They're going for it.
Yeah, we're gonna do this right. You got to come." But then he could see that I wasn't committing to the night and he knows the ins and outs of all of our relationships very well because he really listens to the pod.
Wow.
And then so he's like, "Max, you better not be sneaking out on me." He's like he's sort of like pointing his finger at me. He's like, "Max, we're doing this, man." Anyway, I did sneak out, so I couldn't. But one thing I want to let you guys know is his name's not Kai; it's Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, did you know that?
I figured as much.
Yeah, it's
Just
the
a short
form.
form nickname.
Oh, and he
It's
said
like my sister's name's Tiffany. I just call her Tiff.
Yeah, but he says nobody in his life has ever called him Kai except for you.
Oh,
Oh.
so I got it from Shane then.
Yeah,
Well, on his Instagram, I follow him on Instagram. It's Kai Downey. So.
yeah.
There you go.
Oh, who wouldn't call him? I call a girl
But-
"Kiss Me Deadly" just from her MySpace nickname.
That's
sure.
right.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But anyway, shout out to Kai.
Or Kyle.
No, let's stick with Kai.
Yeah.
Kai's
Shout out to
way
Kai.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kai's,
Kai's cool.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh yeah, no one's ever called me Kai ever except for Shane." But that's the name of your nephew, right? Because my nephew is named Kai.
Jesus.
So
I
he-
did not know that.
Yeah. So he knows, but he's a smart guy. He's gonna be an air traffic controller.
Well, I hope he slows it down on those whipped cream shots if he's going to be fucking sending planes through the sky.
Props
Jesus.
to Kai. I like that guy.
Did you see Dan Hamilton's Insta story
Just
commenting on what it's like to live with you?
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
We should get that and put up
It's
on
like
ours.
22 clues that I'm with Max, or
Yeah.
Max stayed the night.
Well, this is it. Is that like I'm showering, I'm shaving, my shit is everywhere around the apartment.
2 empty like Powerades in the fridge. The door was unlocked.
Yeah, you left the door. I literally. It's funny you bring this up. So I brought a bunch of stuff over to your place in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Because we'd played hockey on the weekend, and in that bag was like a grooming kit, like with a shaver and like Old Spice and all this shit in it. That was at my old apartment from 2 years ago, where you stayed one night and just left it there.
Yeah.
And Danica was like, "Bring this back to Max."
Oh yeah, you know, Network, my favorite Twitter follow. He has like he had a funny tweet. Like I could literally live under a bridge as long as it was like it had a Wi-Fi signal. Like that's sort of my vibe. You know, like I just like throw me anywhere. I'll leave stuff behind. I don't really care.
All right, so today on the show, fellas, we have Lena Waithe.
Yeah, I think I told you this on a previous pod, but I missed this interview. I was flying home, and when I landed at the airport, I must have been coming from the States, and she was on the other side of the glass.
Yeah.
And I waved to her. Did I tell you that on the podcast?
You did tell
did,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
she wave back though?
Yeah, she did. She was very confused though. Like she had no idea. She was just a random dude waving to her.
But yeah, she was super cool. As you'll hear in the interview, she's very laid back and I think very like the fact that she's like basically running this show and she created it with the Shy, which by the way I called it the Chai,
Oh, right.
like a fucking idiot. Great way
Did
to
she
lose.
correct you?
Oh yeah, weird blunder, but it's that thing where it's like people. Is it Chi Town or Shy Town?
It's Chi-Town. My mom called it Chai also. The Chai.
Oh, geez, that
Yeah.
makes me feel good. Yeah. I'm well out of the loop, fellas. But I don't know. It's like, you know how people would call it like Che and Shay? There's people
Yeah.
that would
Che
call it
Guevara,
Shay.
yeah.
So, like, do you call him Che Guevara or Che Guevara?
Yeah. Che.
I say Che too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Going
I
to
should have
Che.
applied that to the Chai.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you're listening and you've ever been in a situation where you're interviewing somebody or you're having a conversation that you think, oh, this is important and I don't want to look like a moron, just know that I've been there.
But you blamed it on your Canadian accent.
I
right?
sure did.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
No, that's a
just
good
being a
move.
goofy Canadian, not Canadian accent, but just the idea is like, oh, I'm Canadian and I haven't been to Chicago.
Chicago.
Faraway land of Chicago.
Oh man. But anyway, so I just know that in that moment when you're listening, I was dying a slow death and
Oh
tried
man,
to.
that's the
wiggle
worst.
out of
like,
it.
I remember the Nora Jones interview. Not to bring up old scars, but
Wow, killing me today, Max.
the just the Danger Mouse one.
Yeah.
Oh man.
What's the Nora Jones thing? Sorry? I
Oh,
don't listen to the interviews.
He just waits for the dessert.
He referenced the wrong producers. Danger
Oh.
Mouse produced the
It's Danger Mouse, and I said Dead Mouse.
Dead Mouse. Yeah, and those are two different.
I mixed up
different
my mouses.
things.
Yeah. I always mix up my Chais and Shies,
Right.
Chays and Shays, and my mouses.
Right.
Anyway, so
mice.
my mice. No, that's well done. She was very kind and cool and gracious after I missaid it. But
This actually reminds me of a similar situation. So we were jumping in here on a cut because Webmaster Dan reminded the gang here of a story where I totally looked like an idiot to open a show. So tell the people what the story was, because I kind of forget, but I just remember feeling terrible about it.
You were in Calgary,
Yeah.
and you had played Edmonton the night previous.
Yeah.
And it was a big show in Calgary,
Oh, yeah.
biggest show to date,
Yep.
and it was like Saddle Dome Stampede grounds, so it can't get more Calgary than that.
Yeah, I was like, on the Stampede grounds.
and he called it Chaldry.
And then it
I
was like
think
the
it was
second song.
after the first song or going into the second song.
I said, "Good evening, Edmonton. Are we gonna have a good time tonight?" And then they're rival cities. They
Oh,
do
yeah.
not like each other. And I was just like, and you can kind of smile off anything, but I was just like, fuck, and I could just like my.
Did you say that many fucks on the mic?
No, but my eyes were saying that.
Mm.
And everyone was kind of laughing at me because they knew that I had realized my mistake immediately.
Yep.
And there's some booze. I'm like, and there's like, you can kind of get out of any situation, but this was like, how do you? And the other thing is, I'd been thinking so much about like how to address Calgary and things I wanted to talk about the city, and I'd really done my homework that day. Like the whole day, I'd just been sort of prepping to like talk about local things and my relationship with the city, and I fucked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had Lanny McDonald side stage ready to come on, and then he walked away.
It's Lanny McDonald.
Yeah, that's
You
what I
said Lanny, didn't you?
No.
Oh. I'm hearing everything wrong.
So Lena Waithe, man, she's exploding. Obviously, she has this show. It's just been renewed for season 2.
Damn.
It's on Sundays on Crave TV here in Canada and Showtime in the States. So lots of big things. She's also actually, and I didn't realize this till after I read Ready Player One and started kind of doing the wiki thing. She's one of the main stars of it. Like she's one of like
Whoa.
the 4 major players in Ready Player One. So she's been in a film directed by Steven Spielberg.
Okay.
2 former podcasts in Ready Player One.
That's right. You guys want to get? Have you guys watched The Shy yet?
My mom says it's awesome.
She loves The
Yeah,
Shy.
she does.
It's really, really good. Like I watched the pilot and I loved it, and I just haven't been able to get around to watching more of it. But
I have not seen it yet.
you will like it.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys want to get to Lena Waithe?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. It's been a long day of press so far.
No.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's just pretty light.
Yeah. Do you enjoy doing press?
Sure. Yes, it's better than alternative.
Meaning like no one interested?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of want to start with just the idea that I think most kids' dream isn't to be a TV writer.
Mhm.
It's such a kind of a niche thing when people look at the big machine that is entertainment.
Right.
It's always actor or movie star or whatever.
Mhm.
You know, when you were consuming television and sort of dissecting shows as a kid, you know, did your mother and grandmother consciously know they were supporting this ambition?
No. I think they just thought we were just watching television. But I think for me, I'm always more fascinated by the wizard behind the curtain. who's making everything move and is sort of running everything. And I think that's really where that's what I was excited by the most, was who's creating these characters, who's writing these lines, because that to me is where the magic lives. Even though, yes, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing and I'm loving these actors and these characters and these sets, but I really was curious about who was creating the world.
You're aware of the construct, whereas most people are just seeing what they're seeing.
Yeah. And I appreciate what I was seeing. That was really important, the images. But I also really love the content as well. And that's what I think fascinated me the most.
Right. I mean, have you always been sort of like, I don't want to say critical thinker, but like, I mean, like you said, even the idea of watching something and going, oh, who writes those words and who directs that and why, how's that put together?
Right.
That's sort of a way of thinking that most people, I don't think when they're younger, even think about when they're consuming a TV show.
Yeah, you're right. I think most people just sort of, think about, oh, I'm watching something really, shiny and cool.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm always like, yeah, but there's somebody behind that. And that's what was so exciting to me about it.
Yeah. You've been in a lot of writing rooms and now you're running your own show, obviously. Yeah. Are there experiences as a writer or actor that inform the way that you wanted to work with your staff now that you're the boss?
I think the biggest thing is to really give the writers a sense of ownership of the show and not make it, even though you have to know technically, I know who it says, whose name is under created by, but I really wanted to encourage the writers to understand that I wrote the pilot and I created the characters, but I needed them to help me take the characters on a really interesting, layered, and complex journey. And that's really what they did. So for me, it was more about making sure that the writers felt like real voices on the show and not just employees on the show. I was really invested in every single writer and in their careers and their lives and what they wanted to be doing, because I think that's how the business changes, not just having one person succeed, but having everyone succeed and everyone's dreams come true.
Yeah, high tide lifts all boats.
Absolutely.
So, but I mean, that kind of empathy, is that something that's natural, or is that something where you're like, hey, I've been through some of these maybe not great experiences, so it's like when I get my chance, I'm going to sort of be better at it?
Well, I think it's natural, but it's also about me wanting to see the business look different and change. I think the best way to do that is to pull people up and to not even pull them up, but to empower them to pull themselves up. And I think that's really what my writers represented. Everyone from, Dime Davis, who's a phenomenal writer and a phenomenal filmmaker, was in our room. She was a PA on the pilot. She was a writer's assistant in our little sort of mini room. And then she became a staff writer on our series, which was a wonderful journey. And Marcus Gardley, who is an amazing playwright, who spent a lot of time in Chicago, who still has plays in Chicago. He still goes and helps young people learn how to write plays in Chicago, which is amazing. And he's just phenomenal. He really is an amazing writer, and I'm happy to have him in our room. And then Justin Hillian, who also wrote on I'm Dying Up Here, who we were so happy to have in our room. He's a guy who has so many different life experiences. He's so smart. He's so quick. And he's someone that I just really believe in his voice. And Kathy Kasake, who is an amazing female writer. She is from Uganda and moved to America when she was 12. And she just has such a unique perspective and such a unique voice. And it was her first time being staffed on our show as well. She was a script coordinator on Masters of Sex and was ready to really sit at the table, and she was a superstar. So to me, I'm grateful that I can, have those people in my life, let alone on my staff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the idea of like leadership, and these sort of qualities that you have, and like between, like the Emmy speech, your activism around like LGBTQ issues and all of that stuff. Have you always been a natural leader?
I mean, I think it's something that you have to learn. I think to me, it's about being a team player, which I think makes someone a really great leader because you understand the importance of everyone's role. And I don't always have to lead. I like also sort of standing next to everyone and getting things done.
Well, it's an interesting thing, the idea of like, being a team player, standing next to people, and then sort of trying to take the leap and be like, no, my voice is going to be, the voice that is being heard. I guess the question would be like, have you always been an ambitious person in that sense?
I think I've always been ambitious for sure. But I think it's more about just always had really big dreams and really big goals. And, it's about willing them to happen and doing the work and having the support and just sort of really caring so much about the craft. I think that's what's really most important to me.
How do you make the leap from somebody watching TV in Chicago to then all of a sudden being a part of like this big machine and something that seems like a very like, the odds of success are very low when you get into the industry that you're in. It's such a unique job. How do you like make that happen? And did you ever have any sort of doubts along the way? Like, shit, this isn't going to happen for me.
Never thought that. But I think for me, it was about really, honestly, it boils down to craft. It's like you have to really care about the craft. And that's what will set you apart. It's like there's a lot of the reason why there's so many people in Los Angeles particularly that are still trying to get in is because one, it's about timing, but it's also about people being ready for the opportunities, and also people not letting anything deter them, not letting rejection get you down, not allowing someone else's opinion, get you off your path. It's about patience and really just caring about your craft. It always boils down to craft, because if you have something great, everybody wants it. If you have something good, some people will want it. If you have something mediocre, people will still want it because mediocrity sells too.
Sure.
But I feel like greatness always rises to the top, and it can't be denied and it can't be ignored. And so for my mission is always to strive for greatness. That's what I always tell my mentees.
Yeah, it's always the work first. Like make
Yeah.
sure the work is tight, and then all the other shit comes.
Everything else will, come into place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the chai.
The shy.
The shy.
Yeah.
I'm like Canadian. I'm like,
It's
with the
all good.
chai.
No, it's all good.
Yeah. With the shy, you know what I mean? What are the shows and references did you have in mind? Like who are the people that, well, we'll get to this after, but sort of the people when you create something, I ask musicians this a lot. If there's anyone in your inner circle that you lean on for feedback, meaning like, hey, read this draft.
Absolutely. Justin Simeon is someone I definitely lean on for sure. And also those writers I just mentioned, I really trust them and their opinions, and I know how important the craft is to them. So for me, it's really important to always make sure there's a checks and balances. And in terms of references, House of Cards was definitely one that I loved and respected. And Downton Abbey is also one that I really thought was special in terms of character development and just the surprises along the way. The Practice, which is an old David E. Kelly show, which I really appreciated in terms of having really flawed characters that were
Dylan McDermott?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, Bobby Donald wasn't always the most stand-up guy, but he always wanted to do the stand-up thing in the courtroom, and even he would go to any lengths to get his clients off, and some people really kind of that wrestled in your soul about was this right, or is he, but he's still staying within the confines of the law, so I guess I can't be mad at it.
Yeah, these ethical and sort of moral internal battles.
Absolutely. Or even Mad Men as well was
Yeah.
something that I really looked at. So I think there's this idea of people go, oh, it's like The Wire. It's like, well, but my influences are not only things with just black people in it. My influences are just really just great story and character.
So you're pulling from all over the place,
Absolutely.
which is what all creatives do. But
Yeah.
people always go to the first thing that it looks like to
Sure.
them. Do you
Yeah.
get The Wire a lot with this?
Sure, yeah.
That's funny. Do you find that sort of frustrating, or do you find that like, I'll just explain?
No, I mean, it's a compliment, but I definitely think it speaks to there being a lack of shows with people of color, that I guess maybe people take seriously on television. And at the end of the day, the difference is I'm a black woman and I'm also from the city, and I don't really care so much about the police, but I care about the people that are being policed. And I think that's the difference in the shows.
I watched the pilot, which was fantastic.
Thank you so
and
much.
you mentioned you don't care about the police, but I feel like the one detective is a very empathetic guy.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, because I don't want to demonize them,
Yeah.
but they aren't the center of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a particular TV show or movie that spoke to you a lot growing up? Like something where you go, oh, that's definitively my favorite? Or the
Well,
one
A
that-
Different World absolutely is
Oh, yeah?
so influential for me. Yeah.
I remember Dwayne Wayne's
Flip-up
glasses.
glasses.
Yeah, those are iconic.
I mean, those characters are so iconic and so memorable, and really just have stood the test of time. I mean, there are people that are my age, even some younger, who can still watch, and I think it's on Netflix still. And you can just turn it on, and it still really holds up, and a lot of the subjects they tackle are still really relevant today, which I think is something that entire cast and crew can be really proud of.
There's something cool about old TV shows that are now sort of found a new life on Netflix, where you put them on, it feels comfortable to just have it on.
It's
you know what I
great.
mean?
It's wonderful for people that obviously weren't around when the show was on.
Yeah, they're finding
they
it.
can check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess lastly, with Master of None, the Thanksgiving episode has become iconic, and it's heralded as one of the sort of best episodes of television in recent memory. Can you walk us through, I guess, how Aziz decided to make that episode a standalone story, or how you guys came to that decision? And then sort of what artistic struggles went into sort of like getting it right?
Well, I think the thing about season 2 is that I think Aziz and Alan wanted to sort of make every episode its own thing, which I thought was really ambitious and really cool. And I really didn't face a ton of artistic challenges with that episode. It was a very thinly veiled version of my own coming out. And so I just had to really think back and just make sure that I was getting it right. And the biggest thing was, again, for me to stand in my mother's shoes and not demonize her and not make her the villain, but also not make my character the hero either. It really just sort of put them both in the same space and trying to figure out a thing that neither one of them had really ever been confronted with before. And I just wanted to tell it honestly, because that's what my experience looked like. It was just that, a process. And it was an experience. And it's one that continues. And I'm really grateful that people responded to it so much in the way they did. It definitely was a really pleasant surprise.
Mm-hmm. I actually do have one more question. I know I said that was
No, it's
lastly. But I was speaking to an artist who won a Grammy recently, was nominated for a Grammy, and they were talking about how sort of being nominated legitimized them in the eyes of their sort of extended family, and like, sorry, what do you do exactly?
Right.
And then the minute you're nominated, it becomes this thing.
Oh, yeah.
How did winning the Emmy for you, I guess, change the way that the industry sort of approaches you, responds to you, and even your peers? You know, does it change things?
I mean, I think it gives you a boost. I mean, and I think the thing in terms of industry, it puts you on a sort of very sort of short list, or you're sort of part of an exclusive club. But I think it just sort of, what I love about it is it kind of gives me a little bit more trust from people, and maybe, I don't know, maybe even boosted my own confidence. But ultimately, I don't think that because I've won an Emmy that everything I write is perfect and is great and all those things. I'm still an artist. I'm still someone who's trying to find my voice, and I'm still, married to the craft. I'm still always trying to be great at it and perfect it. So it was a wonderful moment. It was an amazing accomplishment, but I'm still trucking. To me, it's the beginning of a longer journey.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome to the desserts. We are here with our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. I should say JUNO Award nominated pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham.
I'm glad to be here.
It's really nice to be here with you, Shane. And, I'm just going to say off the top, Shane had this idea when we got in this morning. We started talking about recording this pod, where he said, I'm a JUNO Award nominated guy now. He goes, I just recorded a single called The Nutcracker, which you previewed last week on the show. You asked Mike, can we do a bit of the Mike on Much treatment for myself?
Yeah, we're around each other so much, and you never really get a chance to interview me. So
So with that in mind, I emailed Max. I said, Maxie, what do you think of this idea? Here's some questions, and you seem to love it.
I love this.
Yeah.
So we're gonna give you the full treatment, man.
Yeah. We're going to do this just like we do it when it's the two of us.
And this is no joke. This is a real interview, right?
Yeah, we're putting you in the hot seat, man.
You're JUNO Award nominated. All right. So.
But don't treat me any different than you would like any other guest.
Yeah, like Noel Gallagher or like
Lena
yeah. Waithe.
Or Chai Jones.
So we're just going to jump right into this thing. We usually like to start at the start, so I'm going to go back a bit. You grew up in Hamilton. What did your parents do?
My dad was a steel worker. He's since retired. And my mom was a car insurance saleswoman.
Interesting. Well, so one of the reasons you're here is because you have this new single coming out called The Nutcracker. Do you come from a musical family?
My mom was always singing when I was young. In fact, my parents divorced when I was 6. And that's when I noticed my mom was really hitting the karaoke bar scene a lot. And according to her, she actually won a lot of money in karaoke competitions.
Is she a good singer?
Did you ever see her sing in karaoke?
No, mostly it was I was 6 and it was at bars mostly. Sometimes I'd go out after one of her softball games, but she does have a fairly decent voice. And I remember once she actually laid down a recording of You're So Vain. That was her favorite song and would always be playing in the house. It was weird.
Do you guys still have it?
I don't know. Yeah, just because the technology's gone so far, we don't have any Walkmans laying around. But my grandfather, he was probably the most musical. He was pretty famous in Hamilton. He's a Scottish man, and he was good at the bagpipes, which is one of the harder instruments to master. And he was also very good at the harmonica. So to answer your question, Mike, I do come from a musical family.
That's pretty impressive. When did you start to sort of notice that you had a musical ability or a leaning toward writing music?
Well, when I was young, I was always in bed before I fell asleep. I would always be singing. And anytime anyone asked what I was going to do for a living, I'd say, I'm going to be a professional singer. But then it turned out I didn't actually have a good singing voice. Because sometimes you
Who told you that?
Mainly I could tell, like once I got to a certain age, I thought I had a really good voice when I was young, but then I would sing and then people would make like comments that I didn't have a good voice. So I lost confidence in that, but I really got into rap music at a young age. And I actually was in a rap dance class.
What's a rap dance?
Yeah, I've
class?
never heard of such a thing.
You know when you see a rap video,
Like a hip hop dance class.
Yeah, hip hop dance
Okay,
class.
sure.
I
Oh,
was in.
gotcha.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
called it.
Honey, like with Jessica. Alba
Criss
kind of
Cross
thing.
was
Yeah.
one of my favorite acts. And I would even wear my clothes backwards to these dance classes. I seriously would, with a crisscross shirt on. And then I backed out of the recital. I just got really nervous.
So your clothes look like they're on the right way when you backed out.
Yes. Yes.
Good
It's a
work.
good joke. Yeah, that's
Well,
how it all began. And then, of course, later on, I ended up joining a rap group when I was about 19 called Crocodile Mile. And, I've always wanted to record an album since.
What were those songs like?
Like this climate, I'd lose my job for sure. They were very inappropriate. Yeah, you could never have them be released to the public.
Yeah, was it sort of kind of like pre-Lonely Island, but with really sort of offensive lyrics? Like the gag was that you go so far that people are sort of shocked and laughing.
Yeah, the joke was, I guess we were hardcore, just rude rappers.
Rude dudes.
Rude boys.
We were in on the joke, but I'm not sure the general public would be if they could hear the songs.
Totally. Well, I want to go to the single that you have coming out. I guess so it's called The Nutcracker,
Yeah.
and you did it with Dru Grange.
Dru Grange, yeah. Speaking of JUNO Award winners, Dru Grange, I believe he's been nominated for 4. He's won 1. He was in the R&B group In Essence. So I was lucky enough to just meet him because a guy I went to high school with manages him now, Steve Sarkany, and he agreed to a collaboration. And I was just in the studio, so it's good to be there. And
Whose studio?
Steve Sarkany, he does it in a basement studio. It's really nice.
And Steve Sarkany manages Dru Grange.
Yeah, and just produces music for fun.
Yeah, well, I was going to get into that because I guess this track could be described as like a diss track. And on this pod, we like to get into the minutia of process. And so I guess, like you said, this track was produced by Steve Sarkany. So I guess what we want to know is like, what did Steve bring to the process that helped the song sort of really come together?
Well, I found when I was doing the original song In the Room, I was a little nervous and off time, and it was kind of just ridiculous. The song, as if anyone's heard, it doesn't sound good when we did it live off the floor. Dru's mic was hot. His voice didn't sound as good as it normally does. Like
His voice did sound wonderful in the room. I will attest to that.
but with the
Peaked out
mics
on the recording.
and I was like a little disappointed in that track, and I didn't want that to go to the public. What Steve brought was amazing production values. Like when you guys hear this song, you're actually going to be impressed. I actually sound good. I sound cool. I changed some of the lyrics up, and Dru sounds amazing.
Is it the same track?
It's the same track, but my flow is so good, you're going to be blown away. I'm serious.
Because your flow was very terrible in the room last time.
I know it was,
Yeah,
and I was humiliated with that. And although the lyrics are very hilarious, I don't want people to think that this is a funny song.
Okay.
I just want people to think it's a good song.
It's an honest song.
It's honest, and yeah, it's honest.
Well, speaking of honesty, and we've asked other artists this who've appeared on the pod, but when you're sitting down to write lyrics, and specifically for the Nutcracker, like, were you concerned that like whoever you may have been talking about like might hear it and know it was about them, or did you take steps to maybe shield who you were singing about? Because you don't want the subject of the song to hear about it and then maybe feel terrible.
It's about a guy who goes by the nickname The Nut. So some people actually know who that is. Some people don't. But I just thought, hey, it originated in a rap battle. And the purpose of this was for the fans who missed the rap battle so they could hear some of the lyrics that happened during the battle. It wasn't necessarily to put down the nut more. That's just kind of a fringe benefit of this. But yeah, I don't think he's overly offended because he was willing to let those lyrics be released in the episode. It was only a legal issue, which originally I did these lyrics over a Biggie song, which we couldn't get legally cleared.
So you never considered pulling some punches to maybe spare the Nuts' feelings?
No, because I think, we've both publicly bashed each other, and it's all out there anyway. I figured might as well just throw a good chorus to it and a nice beat.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that you both publicly bashed one another, because I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask ethically was, you have this platform and you're going to be releasing this song, I believe, on iTunes. We'll get to how people can get it a little bit later, but should the person you're talking about, you've now admitted that it is the Nut, should he have a platform to respond?
Yeah, I did take that into consideration. I was worried about his reaction once he heard it. He did text
Has he heard the
me.
track? The recorded track?
Well, yeah. So he just messaged me on the weekend. He just said a diss track with an exclamation point, and then he put a question mark. And then I said, "Gotta go." And I had an emoji of a car with like a smoke symbol, like it's coming out, like I'm driving away really fast. And then I said, well, people were asking about the rap battle, so I needed to give them a taste. There was some disappointment that legal wasn't letting us include it because of that Biggie track that you chose. I said, did you dislike the song? He said, I haven't heard it yet, but I will murder you. I said, it's not bad, and the chorus is awesome. And then he did not respond for a full day. And then his next response, like 24 hours after that, was a video of me appearing on a very embarrassing talk show appearance that I was kind of humiliated by. And I think the idea was like, I'm threatening you with this video that I'm going to make this public if you don't take the song down. I wasn't sure.
Right.
But I did bump into him.
But okay, so you've seen him since.
I bumped into him at a local Hamilton brunch spot. And it was kind of awkward, and we were like playing nice. And I was
you were with your partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what did you think of the song? He goes, yeah, it was nothing new. It was all the same lyrics that we heard in the rap battle. He goes, but I'm going to get in the studio and do a diss track of my own, because all things being equal.
Fair is fair.
So I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. So he's going to get back in the studio with Steve, and they're going to do this. It has to have the same chorus.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dru Grange is going to be singing the same chorus, "Fuck You Like I Do," all that. And we're going to sell both of these tracks. And I guess the way to judge who wins is whatever track sells more.
It'll be a classic first week release battle.
Yeah,
Whichever track has the most streams.
Because this was what I think Kanye
50
and
Cent.
did.
Yeah.
Was it Kanye and 50 Cent?
It was.
Yeah.
And I believe Kanye won that one. And 50 Cent actually said he was going to retire from music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. So there will be one. He will be allowed to have a rebuttal to your diss track.
Who do you predict will win that?
I'm out of the prediction game.
It's a good question. The Nut has his underlings that work with him and that are his colleagues, and they might start a campaign. But you have a lot of fans on this podcast too, and you're a Juno nominated guy.
It's true.
So. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Max, because speaking of the Juno nomination that you recently had, and congrats, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Again, we've asked this of Grammy nominees, people that have won Emmys. What does it do? Actually, we just asked Lena Waithe, who was on the show earlier. What does it do as far as legitimizing you to like your parents, your in-laws, being nominated for something like a Juno?
Well, my mom is really freaking out on Facebook. I'm not sure if you guys have followed her on Facebook.
I have her on Facebook.
Nothing to do with the Juno.
What's that?
Nothing to do with the Juno. Just her going.
She's just having a total mental breakdown. But yeah, she's just like, my son is nominated for a Juno. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. And then someone will say, that's amazing, Trish. She'll say, I know, I'm in awe. And then someone will say, congrats, Shane. She'll say, I know, he's going to beat Bieber. Like she's getting it all confused, like I'm up against Bieber too. But yeah, as far as just people outside of my family, it's kind of surreal to say I'm a Juno nominated artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And soon, I think there's a pretty good chance we could win this. And just to say I'm a Juno winning artist and to have a track coincide with this, it's pretty great timing for just promoting the Nutcracker.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, to answer your question, it feels great, and it totally legitimizes me.
Was there anything in particular that your in-laws said or reacted in a way that was notable?
They're always proud about the littlest details of anything. Like my in-laws are just very positive people, where my parents are never impressed by anything really. Like, so for them to have such a great reaction, I really know I kind of made it. If my mom and dad can like be really excited.
Well, that's fantastic. Do you have anything more to ask, Maxie boy?
Yeah, I feel like you normally chime in on real interviews, Max.
No, I mean, I think we covered most of it.
But you just think there's a big joke, right? Me being interviewed, it's like a gimmick. Honestly.
Well, I mean, I don't think we've ever interviewed anyone with regards to your music career with such a short lifespan. So there's not as much to dive into.
It is your first single,
and it's not even released yet.
Well, we had that Julia Michaels person in, and she just had that one big single.
but she also wrote
She
Hands
wrote-
Myself
and
and
she,
Sorry by Bieber.
Yeah,
Well, maybe if
international
you asked a
hits.
different question, you'd learn more about me.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're on the spot.
So
man.
just try one question.
Okay.
Put a little effort.
Do you want it about the single?
What?
Do you want it to be about the single?
Do you want the question he's going to ask to be about the single?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm doing all the heavy lifting.
It could be about anything, Max.
Okay. Okay, because I'm a lead singer, I'm gonna make this about myself. Are you worried about making another Arkells video? Because you said you were dreading a text message from Ash.
Terrified. Just because that I found that was one of the hardest experiences of my life. And I can't, like, Mark Myers did much more work on it. I can't imagine how he feels about doing another thing. Because it is a monumental task on anytime you do a 4-day shoot. And just Mark edited it also. But yeah, I was dreading it. But I don't think anything will be as hard as that because most shoots don't go over 2 days. Yeah. So yes, I was dreading it.
And do you have any more music in mind after you put out the single? So what's the next step in your hip hop career?
I think this just might be my first and last song.
Ah, very cool.
All right. Well, that's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
You
Great.
look like you have something on your tongue
No,
there.
no. I'm just processing it all.
All right.
You do have a perma smile right now, Max. He's actually nervous because the music is his thing.
Yeah.
Oh, are you jealous at all?
About competing with your new single.
Yeah.
No.
No?
Thank you so much for your time, Shane.
Thank you for having me.
That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you so much to Lena Waithe for coming on and chatting with us. Thank you so much to JUNO nominee Shane Cunningham for coming on and talking about his new single.
You're welcome.
You can find us online at Mike on Much for Twitter and Instagram. Throw us a follow. As I said at the beginning of the show, comment and ratings in iTunes do us wonders. So please do that. And tell the pod about your friends. Tell the pod about your friends. Tell your friends about the pod.
Both are fine.
But the artwork is provided by Jenna Gregory and put together by Tara Paquette. Thank you so much. Webmaster Dan, Justin Stockman,
Greg Stewart.
Greg Stewart, the whole gang here.
And everybody that mixes the pod, thank you so much for all you do for us. Thank you guys for listening. The Mike and Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman. I'm your host, Mike Vierman. See you next week. We don't die on the weekend.